We're jumping right in today to talk about a single event that really, it kicked off the modern fight for LGBTQ plus civil rights.
That's right. We're talking about the Stonewall uprising. It all started at a place called the Stonewall Inn in New York City.
And it's almost impossible to understand why it was such a big deal without first getting a picture of what life was like before it happened.
Oh, absolutely. Before 1969, for gay and transgender people in the U.S., life was, well, it was extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And often very dangerous.
So just how bad was it in the 1960s?
It was brutal. I mean, in most states, any kind of same-sex relationship was just flat out illegal.
Illegal. So you could go to prison.
For a long time, yeah. They had these, these sodomy laws. It wasn't just frowned upon. It was an actual crime the state would prosecute.
Wow. And that must have bled into every other part of your life.
Oh, completely. If anyone found out, you could be fired on the spot. No questions asked.
And no legal way to fight it.
None. Same with housing.
Yeah.
You could get evicted from your apartment just like that. So for most people, hiding who you were wasn't a choice. It was survival.
And I read about these specific laws about clothing.
Yes, this is a really critical point. In a lot of cities, including New York, it was literally a crime to wear clothes that didn't match the gender you were assigned at birth.
So police were actually enforcing a dress code.
They were. There was this informal rule people called the three-piece gender rule.
The three-piece rule?
Yeah. The police could stop you and check. And if you weren't wearing at least 3 items of clothing they thought were appropriate for your gender, they could arrest you right there.
That seems specifically designed to target transgender people and drag queens.
It was. They were the most visible. And so they were often the most vulnerable to that kind of harassment.
Yeah.
And on top of all that, you had the medical world.
Right, the doctors.
Until 1973, being gay was officially classified as a mental illness. A sociopathic personality disturbance was the term.
A mental illness. So they thought it was something that needed to be cured.
Exactly. And the cures were horrific. We're talking about things like electric shock therapy, even lobotomies in some cases. It was it was institutionalized cruelty.
So you're facing jail, losing your job, your home, and even doctors are telling you that you're sick.
Which is why a place like the Stonewall Inn became so important. It was this little haven on Christopher Street in Greenwich Village.
Because other, more legitimate bars just wouldn't let you in.
They wouldn't serve anyone they even suspected was gay or transgender. The Stonewall Inn. I mean, it was run by the mafia, so it wasn't perfect.
Right, they were in it for the profit.
Of course. But it was a space, a rare place where people, especially young people who'd been kicked out by their families, could actually find a community, find people like them.
It was a sanctuary.
It was. And the building itself, funnily enough, it used to be a stable, then a bakery. It kind of evolved into this space for survival.
Okay, so that sets the scene. Let's get to the night itself, the raid. Saturday, June 28th, 1969.
Right. So the police show up, it's early in the morning, and they conduct a surprise raid.
And the official reason was?
Investigating illegal alcohol sales, which, was technically true. The place didn't have a real liquor license. But that was just the excuse.
The real goal was just to harass people.
Always. The goal was to arrest employees, arrest customers, and especially to go after anyone violating those clothing laws we talked about.
And usually these raids followed a script, right? People would just comply.
Yes. The usual routine was to cooperate. You'd line up, show your ID, maybe get arrested, but you'd do it quietly to avoid making things worse.
But not this night.
This is the night that pattern just shattered. For some reason on this night, they decided they were done complying.
So what happened?
Well, the tension started building as the police began leading people out to the patrol wagons. But instead of the crowd outside just, melting away.
It grew.
It grew. And it got angry. People from the neighborhood saw what was happening and joined in. They started yelling at the cops.
And then it escalated.
It did. They started throwing things. First coins, like pennies and dimes, to mock the police payoffs. Then bottles, bricks, whatever they could find.
There was a specific moment, wasn't there? A sort of spark?
There was. The story goes that a woman in handcuffs, a lesbian who was fighting with the officers, turned to the crowd and shouted something like, "Why don't you guys do something?"
And they did.
They did. That cry for help just lit a fuse, and the whole situation flipped. The police, who were used to being in control, suddenly found themselves outnumbered and on the defensive.
To the point where they were forced to retreat. back inside the bar.
Can you believe it? They had to barricade themselves inside the Stonewall Inn for their own protection.
Wow.
And the crowd was outside, using a parking meter as a battering ram, throwing things through the windows. It was a total reversal of power. This was the community finally fighting back after years of abuse.
And this wasn't just a one-off explosion of anger, right? It didn't end that night.
Not at all. That's what makes it so important. It wasn't just a riot, it became a movement.
Because people came back.
For several more nights, thousands of people flooded the streets of Greenwich Village, protesting, chanting.
Chanting about what?
Things like gay power. They held up signs demanding to be treated like human beings. The local news had to cover it, and suddenly this fight that had been happening in the shadows was on a national stage.
And that energy, it had to go somewhere. People started organizing.
Almost immediately. That's when you see the formation of these really important activist groups.
Like the Gay Liberation Front.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The GLF, their approach was, well, it was radical. They didn't just want to change a few laws.
They wanted to change everything.
The whole of society. They saw the problem as much bigger: patriarchy, capitalism, you name it. They were confrontational. They published newspapers. Their whole message was about being out and proud and not hiding anymore.
But there was another major group with a different strategy.
Right. The Gay Activists Alliance, or GAA.
And they were more focused.
Much more. The GAA was all about practical legal change. They wanted to lobby politicians and get specific laws passed that would protect people from discrimination in, say, housing or jobs.
So more working within the system.
You could say that. And you know what? The movement needed both. It needed that radical fire from the GLF to change hearts and minds, and it needed the focused legal strategy of the GA to actually change the laws. It was a shift from just trying to survive to actively demanding a seat at the table.
And a movement like that needs leaders, people on the front lines.
And many of them were the people who had always been the most marginalized. We have to talk about figures like Marsha P. Johnson.
A Black transgender woman.
Yes, and an incredibly influential activist. She was there at the riots and became a huge advocate, especially for homeless LGBTQ plus youth.
And Sylvia Rivera.
Another absolute powerhouse. She was a Latina trans woman who fought so hard for the rights of transgender people and people of color. She often had to push the mainstream gay rights movement to pay attention to their needs.
And they did more than just protest, right? They built things.
They did. Together, they founded an organization called Star Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries.
STAR, what did it do?
It provided housing and support for homeless queer youth. They knew that you can't fight for liberation if you don't have a safe place to sleep.
That kind of grassroots work, that momentum, it all leads to what we now know as Pride.
It does. An organizer named Brenda Howard is often called the Mother of Pride for coming up with the idea of a march to commemorate Stonewall every year.
And the first one was exactly 1 year later.
June 1970. The Christopher Street Liberation Day March. Thousands of people marched from Greenwich Village up to Central Park.
It must have been an incredible sight.
At the time, it was the biggest LGBTQ plus demonstration in American history. And it wasn't just in New York. They had sister marches in LA and Chicago.
And that's the tradition that continues today all over the world.
That's it. It's a celebration for sure, but it's also still what it was at the very beginning, a political statement about visibility and human rights.
So let's talk about the impact. What were the concrete changes that came out of all this activism?
Well, the first huge victory came in 1973.
Okay, what happened?
After years of being pushed by activists, the American Psychiatric Association finally removed homosexuality from its official list of mental illnesses.
That is massive. It basically pulled the rug out from under so much of the discrimination.
It was a fundamental step. It said, these people are not sick. At the same time, activists were chipping away at the local level.
Pushing for new laws.
Yeah, laws to protect people from being fired or evicted. Those early city-level fights were the building blocks for all the national progress that came much later.
And the site itself, the Stonewall Inn, eventually got official recognition.
It did. In June 2016, President Obama designated the area as a national monument.
The first one dedicated to LGBTQ plus history.
The very first. Which ensures that this story, this history, is preserved as a core part of the American story. It can't be erased.
And that spirit of Stonewall, that willingness to stand up and fight back, you still see it today?
Absolutely. Today's activists are still fighting, just on different fronts. They're focused on things like bullying in schools or the lack of health care for transgender people, and making sure the movement includes everyone of all races and identities.
The core goal really hasn't changed that much, has it?
Not at all. The goal is still to create a world where every single person can live safely and be who they are without being afraid.
When you look back, it's incredible. The events at the Stonewall Inn really prove that a small group of people standing up together could launch a global movement for dignity and respect.
It did. And it shows that education and bravery are still the most important tools we have for achieving real equality.
Good luck with your studies.